Welcome. I wanted to take a quick minute to walk through a simple 1, 2, 3 way to use Tinkercad based on what we got to in the 5-week class in our 2016 SEP session. So as you can see, I have an SEP file open, and I'm going to use the metal template that we used as our proof of concept for trying to get 3D printed projects. So what I did and what you can do in Tinkercad is you're going to primarily be looking at these right sidebar options. So if you go to geometric, for example, you'll see you get shapes of spheres and wedges and all kinds of cool stuff. So you can just simply drag these things over. You can see I have my scale changed so it looks gigantic. So I'm just going to drop that back since we don't need that. But what we're going to do in this case is we are going to add text. And to do that, we are going to go to Shape Generators, and you'll see there's another triangle under here, and you go directly to text. Now, you do have the option of adding letters directly, which I would discourage, because you'll find it just adds to the work that you have to do to align everything on a horizontal plane, and you'll have to line each letter, and I'll show you the tools that you would use to do that. You'd go to the adjust icon. When you choose text, though, you'll see when you do that you get a dialog box here, and what it does is it automatically puts all of the letters that you type in. So let's say, for example, oops, hang on a second, jump me out of there. And if you do this and then click outside, you see how it lines everything up on the same vertical plane. Versus if I'd put GREATCLASS and gone with letters, it would have added it, but I would have had to resize and realign each one. So it's sort of a shortcut way to deal with that issue. So what you'll also see, and I have the ruler activated here, and you would get to the ruler this way, and you go to helpers. If you just drag it over, and you see I have this little X here, that would be the way to get rid of the ruler. So I'm going to play it back and forth, start from the beginning. So this is as if I dragged it over from the beginning. And if you click on there you go, on the object you dragged over, then you get to control, actually manually can do this. You can click on it, and when it has the blue highlight, you can actually change the size. So if I want to go to 2, you see how it changed it slightly? And then if you do right click, you can kind of change the perspective of your plane to see what you've done. So that's kind of a lot of words. So I'm going to change this, and I'm just going to say class, because I want to fit it on the metal to show you what we need to watch out for when you're adding objects to other objects. So you can see if we want to put this, excuse me, if you want to put this on here, it's kind of big, right? So we're going to need to resize that, and you can do that with the little handles that you'll see, and they should look familiar too from things like working in Word. If you just grab the end of it and squeeze it in, that will do the trick. And you can reposition. There you go. Still a little bit big. So we're going to try to make it, one of the things that was important to emphasize in the class is changing your perspective. And actually this ruler is getting a little bit tricky, so I'm going to dismiss it by clicking on the X sign. There we go. So you see it kind of jams it up a little bit. So let's make this a little skinnier. And then we can actually move this guy down maybe a little bit. Oop. When I put him underneath is the problem. Very easy to do in Tinkercad. Trying to, when that happens, use your cone and bring it up top. There we go. So we have kind of a busy little middle that we've got here. There we go. Let's make this small. See if we can move this up a little bit. Oops. So there's a lot of, for kids, they're really very, we call it button mash happy, which is good in this kind of application because it's good to be able to just be patient with it and just kind of resize things. Like, for example, I'm having a hard time making sure I don't grab the cone and I grab just the hand object. Whoops. And you can see that it's doing this because I haven't grouped stuff. going to leave it for here for now, just for demonstration purposes. So you can see what we had to do to kind of fiddle with getting the text lined up. It's really important that you have the text aligned flat with the plane of the object you're putting it on top of. If there's even just a tiny bit of space, the printer won't know what to do and it'll print in air. It's really important to kind of take a full view of your object to make sure you're looking at what you're looking at and make sure it's right there, right on top. So these are not grouped yet, and that's be the final part of this. But first, let's align SAP class in 2016. So to do that, you left click and you're going to draw a little text box across all of the objects. You're going to go to adjust and you're going to go to align, and we want to align on the horizontal. There you go. So we want them all to kind of line up. If I had clicked on the little bar, little circle handle on the right, it would have put them all on top of each other. So it would have aligned it on the x-axis. So now, even though they're a little bit close, we've got at least everything kind of lined up with itself. So that's the adjust tool is important. The next part is to make sure that everything is grouped, because you can tell if something's not grouped, because if you try to move the metal, the text does not go with it, right? And in order for something to be a successful print, everything must be grouped. So let's again go to the left mouse and highlight everything. And then you're going to go to this icon up here called Group, and you are done. And you'll see when you move it, everything goes together. Now, you'll notice when I first started out that SCP, the class in 2016, was a different color. And we talked about in class, Tinkercad can be used for a lot of different design purposes, and not all designs are going to be intended to be printed. And you'll see that in architectural firms, interior design firms, and things that you're looking to use as visual models. It would be fine not to have things grouped, and it would also be fine to have things grouped that have the different colors that display. In a 3D printer, we talked about what controls the color of your project has nothing to do with the color that you put here, but has everything to do with the color of the filament that's fed into the printer itself. So that will kind of dictate how much time you spend on what the color things are. Am I going to print this, or am I just using this as a visual display? Which is fine. Actually, the visual display projects you have a lot more flexibility to create complex objects without the worry of whether they need to be broken into separate print jobs because of their fragility, their thinness, and you don't really need to worry about the assembly and the multi-project jobs that you send to a printer. So let's say that you wanted, though, for your visual to keep the color choices. What you would do is you would go to Color and click on this multicolor, and then click outside again, and you'll see the project is grouped and it keeps the original color for what you selected when you added the text. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The biggest things are to make sure that all of the things that you add of separate elements from the right toolbar are flush to each other if you're planning printing, and that you group things, and you can feel free to use adjust. You can also ungroup too. So if you this left mouse where you draw the little box, and it automatically snaps to all the objects there. If you click ungroup, that will take them apart again. And you might want to do that for something like if you're wanting to redesign or you want to change an element after you've decided. And then again, of course, you can group again. And now it took the color away, so I would need to go back again and do color and multicolor. There you go, and fix that again. Now, the other thing that we learned about Tinkercad is it autosaves, which can be good or bad. It might mean you can undo to a certain extent, even though, and it's sort of interesting that it allows you to do that even though it's autosaved it. So it must have a temporary memory when it autosaves that eventually gets consolidated to a permanent memory. So I think undo is good up to a certain point in your project. Anyhow, Tinkercad gives your projects all kinds of strange names because it autosaves. So to go back to control that, you would go to Properties, and you can change the name here when you get the Properties menu options open up. Also, you can change your public access settings. All Tinkercad projects save automatically to private, you would need to change that to public, and that means then when you go to the gallery, which I'll show you in a minute, your project is available to everyone to see and download. Now you might ask yourself, why would you do that? Well, you would do that because, say for example, if you are creating an object on a shared account like we did in this class, and then you go to open your own account, if you made it public, then when you opened your own account, you could go back, and I'll show you, and you could go to Gallery. You could also search from here as well. It works both ways. And for example, I'm going to show you, I prefaced all my files with SCP for the class, and by doing so, I had kids go directly to the gallery, and then because I had made them public, they could take a look at them and they could import them into their class projects to get an idea of the concepts we were talking about, also to follow along, because several of these we did during class. For example, I demonstrated how to make things hollow, and we also talked about, there was an unfixed metal in here at one point, here we go, this one, where the 2016 wasn't flush to the bottom of the metal. And I showed an example of what a print job looks like when that isn't done, and what happened is all it did was it printed the metal and SCP without the 2016. So kids learn by fixing stuff, and so that was a fix-it project. So that is Tinkercad in a nutshell. I hope everybody had a great time. I will say that of the 28 kids that we taught in this session, not a single kid had ever used Tinkercad before, and by the end of 5 weeks, I felt entirely confident that not only did kids get how to use Tinkercad, but that they understood how to access their files, and several actually took their files outside of class and took them to either their local school or local contact and got some successful prints. So that's very exciting, and I highly recommend Tinkercad, and I hope that you have a lot of fun playing with this, and that we'll keep an eye and see what Tinkercad comes up with for the future. Keep on working.